In the first part of Domain 5, 5.1, we'll talk about security governance. Before we get into security governance, it's important to remind what is an organization, which is ultimately what we are trying to protect, right? So an organization is an entity formed for a specific purpose. People work together to achieve a common goal. It can be a government agency, it can be an educational institution, it can be a hospital, it can be a non-profit group, etc. These are entities with defined roles, responsibilities, and generally a hierarchical framework from top to bottom. And generally, this is what the hierarchy looks like. So you have a structure and hierarchy, it varies. There are common elements found, but most likely you have a CEO who is a top-level executive responsible for management and decision-making, the strategic leader of the organization, and takes everyone with him. You have an executive team that consists of top executives like the chief financial officer, chief operational officer, chief information security officer, and more. You have middle management. These are all the managers who oversee specific departments. You can have managers for IT, managers for cybersecurity, managers for finance, accounting, and more. And you have the employees and staff, the operational level where employees perform their roles and contribute to the daily tasks. So generally, this will be the case. Again, senior management, where you have the CEO and the executive board. Then you have the middle management that consists of the department managers, the human resource managers, and all the managers. And you have the operational staff, all the analysts and consultants. So these governance structures, you have a board, the board of directors. They provide the direction and oversight for security initiatives. They're responsible for security policies, they're responsible for strategic decisions, and they are ultimately responsible for the organization. They're ultimately accountable. Something goes bad, they're the first people that the media and customers will turn to. That's the board. They're ultimately responsible. Now you have committees. Committees are grouped to form to focus on specific areas of security, like incident response, like compliance. They facilitate collaboration and communication across departments. You have committees focus on specific area of security. You have government entities. They enforce compliance with laws and regulations. And you have a centralized or decentralized governance structure. A centralized governance structure, decisions and policies are controlled by a central authority. So there's a central authority and it flows downwards. In a decentralized structure, responsibilities are distributed across multiple departments. So it's not centralized across one department and flown across, but it is distributed across multiple departments. Now let's take a look at some important roles and responsibilities within an organization and within the CompTIA Security Plus syllabus. So you have it right here, and we will discuss them. First, you have the CEO. Again, the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, leader of the organization, defines the strategy goals and engages with the board of directors. Now, we have the different data responsible. First, you have data owner. The data owner is responsible and accountable for data. They define security policies in relation to data, and they usually are the business executives or the department heads. You have a data controller. Data controller determines the purpose and the means of processing data. They usually control how data is processed. You have the data processor. So the data processor, they process data on behalf of controllers, usually third-party vendors or internal IT staff. And you have the data custodian. They protect data and they ensure backups. So let's take an example to understand this even more. Imagine you have a hospital that handles patient data. Now let's take a look at how these roles could differ. The owner, the controller, the processor, and the custodian. The owner is the entity or the person who has legal rights and ownership over the data. So in this case, it could be the hospital. That's a data owner. They own the patient data. They own the medical records, the test results, the personal information. They decide what data is collected and how it should be protected. That's a data owner. It could be an entity or an individual. The data controller is responsible for determining the purpose and means of collecting personal data, of processing personal data. For example, the IT department in the hospital could be the data controller, and they decide why and how patient data could be used, for example, like for research purposes. They have to also make sure that they ensure compliance with data protection regulations. For example, if they collect patient data, they have to comply to HIPAA rules, as an example. The data processor. The data processor is an entity that processes data on behalf of the data controller. They follow their instructions. For example, it could be a third-party company that provides cloud storage or other processing services for the hospital. In this case, they will be the data processor. So they manage the patient's data following the instructions given by the hospital, so by the data controller. But they do not make any decisions as to what data to collect or use. They only process the data as required by the data controller and data owners. And the data custodian is responsible for the safe custody and storage of data. So they ensure that data is securely stored, encrypted, and accessible only to authorized personnel. So they're a little bit more technical. They handle tasks like maintaining backups, implementing firewalls, monitoring for data breaches. So as a summary, the data owner owns the data. The data controller decides what to do with the data. It could be the IT department. The data processor processes the data on behalf of the controller, and the data custodian, usually the IT security team, ensures that data is safely stored and protected. Each of these roles has specific responsibilities that contribute to the overall cybersecurity strategy of the organization.
All right, guys, was that interesting? If so, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on all our social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, to know more and be the first people to see our amazing content that we have for you. Thanks, guys. We're glad to have you.